Okay, so it is 4:30 a.m. GMT, 11:31. So my time is still Sunday, 11:30 p.m. on the 30th. So I'm not going to look at every pair this week, but let's see what we can see on the pairs that I trade the most often. You can see that last week we did find resistance at our daily 55 4-hour 200 combo on pound New Zealand dollar. So currently I am looking for our daily 200 to break to the downside to trade back down to this area. Alternately, we could bounce off and look for a break above this area, but that's going to give us a much shorter window up to our bullish Dynafib and the two EMAs there. Okay, and you can see that we did open with a gap. If we go down to the 1 hour, we had about a 40 pip gap when we opened, about almost a 50 pip gap. So that's almost closed now. So we already have kind of a push up into this area after the gap. So my bias is definitely to continue on the short side after we break that 200. All right, let's take a look at pound CAD. You can see again, pretty much we had a gap on the open here, which is closed. I'm going to be looking for a continuation down. As you can see, we did get good resistance here. So maybe a move back up into the 61.8 in the 4-hour 200, and then move back down. And my first target here would probably be first target, second target, and then the low would be third target. Alright, so pound AUD, you can see we had a pretty significant gap here, almost 100 pips, and we did make a little bit more of a move up. We're all green over here. We closed up 471 pips last week. However, we're currently consolidating around this 78.6. So I will be looking for a signal to short off that to close the gap and probably trade it back down to this area. Alright, pound JPY. So we closed up 128 pips, but we've made kind of this top area here. So I'm still waiting for a larger pullback on the JPY pairs. So if we break below this 4-hour 55, as long as we hold this area, the midterm fib and WS1, I'll look for a move back above the 4-hour 55. However, if we break this, we could potentially drop to WS2, or we could come all the way back down to where our initial push-up was, way down here at this midterm fib, MS1, and the 4-hour 200. If you look at that on the daily, you can see that that would be a fairly strong area. Alright, so pound USD, again, we got a nice move there, down. So what are we doing now? We've kind of barely made a new low, but we haven't really established, of course, what's going to happen for the week. So we could see another pullback into this area, or if we get a bounce off of this midterm fib, we can look for that to make new lows. Alright, Euro New Zealand dollar, another pair that gapped. Almost 70 pips on this one. You can see we spiked up to that midterm fib, and we're currently moving down below this whole area and our kind of last ditch in the sand before reversal, 78.6. So I would be looking for a signal here to trade back down to either WS1 or the low. Let's see what we got. Apparently I've moved my charts. Okay, so we are getting pretty close to a 5-minute signal now. We've still got about 63 pips before the gap closes. Let's look at this. There's nothing there yet on the 1 hour as far as divergences go. Alright, so let's take a look at EuroCAD real quick. We closed up 348 pips. Let's look at the daily. So if we fib the high of last month to the low of this month, not that we have much longer left of this month, but we can still fib that way. We're right around 61.8, which is also pretty close to a midterm fib. And we've held around 142.80 pretty well. So I will be looking for a short below this midterm fib at 42.21. So we've got a bit of room down to the next midterm fib from there. That would be the monthly pivot. We would have to pay attention to this area in here, which there isn't too much room to. So you can see our super convergence zones have stopped so far. So we'll have to wait and see, but we could potentially trade down a little bit. Let's go back to our Euro New Zealand dollar. So it looks like we're going to close here. 27 pips. 45. All right. Okay, so I've taken the Euro New Zealand dollar short. As you can see, we've got, since I've changed time frames, our super convergence zones have redrawn. We got a 7+ zone right there, right where my stop loss is. So I will be paying attention to, I've got a 31 pip stop loss. I'll be paying attention to what happens right around in this area. That'll be about 55 pips up if we get down there. My overall take profit is going to be down here at this midterm fib and the WS1 area. Euro, we also have a gap up. Alright, so we're in, might be resuming a trend here, or we could have just gapped into the range, or just above, as you can see. That was the previous high. We got close to it there, and we gapped up. And this would be the bottom. So now we need to see what happens with this pair. We could just continue on up higher. But what I would prefer is to come back into this area and potentially all the way down here, and then trade back up from a longer term standpoint. Of course, on 5 minute, we can trade down into this area, or we could trade a breakout above the high. So on New Zealand dollar, we're still moving down. We can look for a break below that midterm fib. See what happens around WS1. Could trade this perhaps in both directions this week. We may also make it all the way down to WS2 this week. Alright, so AUD-CAD made a gap again. Gap. However, we look like we're in pretty good position to continue a short if we move back up into this 50% weekly pivot and then come back down. Pay attention to this midterm fib here. And let's look at all USD. So we gap down here as well. We're in a pretty solid downtrend, although it's been slowing past couple weeks. So let's bid this. And we can look for the gap to close and trade back down anywhere on these levels. Yeah, the quicker approach would be to see what happens in relationship here on 5 minute. If we don't, we can push down here, and then we can look for a break, a pullback, and a 5 minute signal go down, or we can see a move down here and a break back above and a 5 minute signal to go long to come back up to this area. Alright, so those are the pairs that I want to look at this week, and we'll take a look and see what happens as we progress.